Hello, Luke. I want to play a game. For the past few years, you have sat in front of your camera, passing judgment on content that you know you do not possess the powers to create. And yet, you sit in your squalor, decreeing what is good and what is bad. So you shall now face a test. You will be subjected to an unbearable form of torture to pay penance for your sins. The only way to survive is remain in your seat the entire time. For if you move, the very device you use to capture yourself will be the cause of your demise. Live or die. Make your choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. No, he's a fiend and feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him.
Play me.
Hello, Detective Banks. Do you know where your officers are?
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel and time for another episode of Luke's Reviews. On today's video, a new Saw film has arrived in cinemas. I mean, how crazy is that? Cinemas are now reopened. Honestly, I didn't care if this movie was good or bad. I was just overjoyed to be back in a cinema. But nevertheless, this is my review for Spiral from the Book of Saw. Chris Rock plays a homicide detective who begins investigating a spree of grisly murders that appears to be at the hands of a sadistic serial killer imitating the infamous Jigsaw killings. It's probably worth mentioning right off the bat, I'm a fan of the Saw series. I know that the franchise as a whole is not for everyone, and a lot of them just see it as pure, disgusting torture porn, and to a certain extent that's kind of true, but I also appreciate the fact that the screenwriters and filmmakers tend to imbue a really intriguing mystery at the core of most of the films. And that mystery usually keeps me engaged and on my toes until we reach typically a big third act reveal that, more often than not, is a pretty cool twist. Oh yeah, and there's the shit ton of violence too, but that's pretty obvious. Also, stay tuned to this channel because coming soon there will be a Saw-inspired episode of Ranked. But as far as Spiral is concerned, this is the furthest removed from the Saw story that we have seen so far. I would say that this behaves more like a spiritual successor to the films before it, rather than a straight-out sequel. And sadly, it doesn't bring me any joy to say that I was disappointed by Spiral. I simply couldn't get on board with the story that it was trying to tell, and its hooks never sank into me like the majority of the films from this series have done in the past. I absolutely appreciate this film for trying something different, going for a more police procedural vibe. The Saw franchise got a bit of slack because it would clearly prioritize the traps over story and characters. So for Spiral, it's far more story driven, as this police precinct is turned upside down as there is a spree of targeted and ruthless killings towards police officers. The traps are merely a means to an end, and heck, I'm all for a focus on story. The first Saw did that. It didn't really contain too many obscenely gory traps, and it wound up being the best one. The biggest issue with Spiral is that the central mystery surrounding the identity of the copycat killer isn't interesting in the least. And part of that is because I managed to figure out who it was in like the opening 5 to 10 minutes. Unfortunately for the film, it leans into that mystery so heavily, so whenever new clues came to light and it was confirming my suspicions even more, it just kind of spoils the experience. And it kind of irked me that the screenwriters would let it slip and make it so glaringly obvious, when in the past, I've usually been very complimentary of the Saw films of how they never take their audience for fools, and they actually present a very clever twist. Alright, it might not have the best dialogue in the world, but more often than not, the story has clues peppered in that you won't really notice until you go back on it. This, they're so blatantly staring you in the face, you might as well have it flashing in bright neon lights. Really, if you're a Saw fan and you're familiar with the way that those types of movies play out, I can see you guessing this really early into the film. As far as the performances are concerned, I was interested to see what Chris Rock was going to bring to the table. Apparently, he's got a huge passion for the franchise as a whole. He came on board, he had some story ideas that he presented to Lionsgate, and that's how this movie inevitably got made. And obviously, we know him for being a comedic actor, for being a stand-up comedian, so him tackling horror was going to be something new for him. And I just don't think it really paid off. I never bought Chris Rock as this grizzled, hardened detective. I mean, at points you can literally see him shift from a normal person to snarling down the camera because we need to know that he's a badass and he won't take anything from anyone. But, I mean, the fact that Samuel L. Jackson is in a Saw movie blows my mind. That being said, don't expect much from him. He is in a handful of scenes at most. But of course, the biggest stars of this film, as always, are the traps. And thankfully, that is what this film gets spot on. They are suitably nasty, painful to watch, creative in both design and execution, and I always appreciate it when the traps themselves have a direct link to the predicament that led the victims to where they are now. Plus, Darren Lynn Bousman is back in the director's chair. He directed Saws 2, 3, and 4, and so he's able to bring along that aesthetic that makes it feel like Saw, which is a point that I could not make for the previous film, Jigsaw. So all in all, I was let down by Spiral. It isn't a bad movie per se, but it wasn't as clever as it thought it was being, and the fact that I could pick apart the mystery almost instantaneously spoilt the whole experience. Chris Rock tried but came up short in his performance, but if you are solely after a few traps to watch blood be shed, I mean, maybe talk to someone first, that's not completely normal. But if that doesn't work, then maybe Spiral is for you. At this point though, I think Game Over is probably the best option. Overall, I'm going to give Spiral from the Book of Saw a 5 out of 10. Anyway guys, those are my thoughts on Spiral. Let me know, have you had a chance to see the film yet? What did you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And also, my question to you, I would like to know, what is your favourite Saw trap? For me, I like the needle, like is a weird word to use. The needle trap is horrifying. Imagine just falling into a pit of dirty, disease-ridden needles and piercing all over your entire body. No thank you. But then there's the rack, which is just horrifying. I don't think I can include a clip of it on this channel because it is disgusting. But yeah, those are mine. What are yours? But as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Hello, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to click that like button, and if you aren't already, click that subscribe button too.